Karl, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And you're here today in new but familiar surroundings.
We are here in the Prelude restaurant at the Theatre Royal, the phoenix from the ashes of the previous restaurant that was here. It's my first time in here, and it's lovely. Oh, they've done it right nice, haven't they? Done it right nice. So we're at the Theatre Royal at the moment, the Theatre Royal.
Exactly. Okay, are you ready for these questions?
I am ready, yes. I think I'm ready to be probed deeply by you. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so the first question, stage presence.
Oh.
Who or what has been your greatest influence in the performing arts?
Blimey, that is a really tough question. Stage presence. Well, I didn't see that many comedians when I was kind of in my formative years because I didn't have any money to go to the theatre. But I went to the Edinburgh Festival and I saw a group called People Like Us. This was in 1997. Probably who many people haven't heard, but they're unbelievably funny physical theatre and verbal sketch comedy act. And they had three incredible performers who'd just come on, and all they had to do was walk on and people would start laughing. And they seemed to fill the stage, and they just seemed to kind of hit the back wall. And I'd never laughed like that in my life at something, really. And it was the show that I saw just before writing my first Edinburgh show, because it was just three guys. They had a packet of digestives as props, an old wardrobe and two chairs, and they made this incredibly funny show. And just the reaction that they caused in me and the people around me, people were like, I'd never seen people laugh like that. And it was one of those like, hey presto moments that I really want to do that. When I was 14, I went to see, and this is, you just reminded me, my first ever comedy gig was seeing Rik Mayall and Ben Elton at the Britannia Pier in Great Yarmouth in 1985, which is aging me. And that was incredible because Rik Mayall at that point was still a massive star from the young ones. And again, people were really, really, really laughing. And no one had heard of Ben Elton, and Ben Elton was amazing. But Rik, everyone had gone for. And Rik, as you know, was just this whirlwind, this dervish, quite dangerous, manic kind of protean presence. And I was just floating on air. And I got to meet him after the show. I went backstage and met him, and it was like meeting God. And that was the point at 14. I thought, I want to be, whatever he's doing, I want to try and do a bit of that. Of course, I'm not Rik Mayall, but to have that spirit of, his confidence on stage was unbelievable. He would just walk on, again, people would just laugh, and he just looked like untouchable, unimpeachable. So I think between Rik Mayall and Ben Elton, and People Like Us, so people you've definitely heard of, maybe people you haven't heard of, those five people, between the two of them, have done the two funniest shows I've ever seen, and I just thought, I want to be on stage and I want to make people laugh. So a very long answer, those two.
And also Ben Elton is here, Theatre Royal, part of the next season as well. So
yeah.
You're now, you're in that billing.
I'm close enough to touch the hem of his cloth if he were here. Yeah, I mean, the fact is, Ben Elton, went through a real stage where people had sort of turned against him, which was mad. And because he wrote The Young Ones and he wrote Blackadder and so much amazing stuff, Ben Elton stuff has made me laugh probably more than any other sitcom writer. And he went through a weird phase in the noughties where he became out of fashion and people thought he was a bit establishment, but it's crazy because now he's back doing Upstart Crow, which is a fantastic sitcom as well. And he's an amazing stand-up. I mean, as I said, I went to see Rik, but when I saw Ben, this is before he was on Saturday Night Live, it was all his classic routines that people hadn't heard at that point, and he was amazing. And the fact he's back again, I think he's really good. I'm definitely going to see him on the tour because, he's someone we grew up with. And I went to see Alexi Sale about a year and a half ago for the same reason. These guys that were part of that thing, and they've still got it. He's still really, really, really got the funny bones. And Upstart Crow, I think, is a wonderful sitcom. So I'm kind of pleased for him that he seems to be back in favour again, because I don't think he ever deserved the opprobrium that he got from people. So yeah, that's good news that he's back. I'll definitely go and see him.
So the next question, all the world's a stage. What has been your favourite place to perform?
Oh, blimey. I think for familiarity and just a sense of ease on stage, it's the Playhouse, simply because I've played there so many times. We were trying to work out quite recently how many nights we've done there over the last 21 years, and we think it's over 200, maybe 250 nights there. That might be exaggerated, but it's a lot. So it feels like home, walking on and off. So that's a place that I really, really enjoy playing, and it's a wonderful theatre run by Caroline, and because it's quite intimate, 300 doesn't feel like 300, it feels like they're right on top of you. and that's a lovely space. But playing Hair at the Theatre Royal for the first time was like my personal Everest, because I used to live on Chapelfield, just behind us now, and I was on the Dole, and I'd walk past this place, and I'd occasionally come and see a show here, and I'd have to get the cheapest £3. They were £3 at the time, and you'd be right at the back watching Shakespeare play, peering through opera glasses at actors on stage, and I was fantasized about what it'd be like to play the Royal. So the first time we did it was incredible, because you went from 300 to 1,500 people, 1,300 people. And the fact that 1,300 people had paid to see a show that I'd written, that I was in, it was a moment that'll stay with me for the rest of my life. It was just like, oh, wow. And my little kind of 18-year-old self was like, wow. So I think for a kind of rock star ego hit, it was playing the Royal. But in terms of just feeling 100% comfortable on stage, it would be the Playhouse. Playhouse will forever be the home of the Nimmos, I think.
And you're coming back to the Playhouse, obviously. What is it about the venue that, it's home to you? What is that feeling?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I think it's just dead easy to play it. It feels like everyone's got a great view. Everyone can see what's going on. It feels it's very easy to build the hive mind that you need to as a comedian. You've got to get 300 disparate minds, and sometimes desperate minds as well. We are in Norwich, all coalesced into laughing at the same thing and thinking the same thing and being into the same thing. And I think the Playhouse just feels like, when you get that right, and they're just there, it's a really, really wonderful feeling. And yeah, I think it's my, the Nimmo's relationship with Caroline and the technicians there. Everything feels like it is like visiting family. It's not like coming to a theatre. And we played different theatres in Norfolk and different festivals, and it can feel like you're, especially with the kind of nature of the Nimmo show, it can feel like you're slightly there vandalising it or soiling it, because you're the kind of rude jesters that have come in. But with the Playhouse, it just feels like the audience that come there know what they want. They're very discerning. They're very honest as well. If they don't find something funny, they absolutely don't laugh. And when they do laugh, it's a big laugh. And as I said, some of the happiest nights of performing live have been at the Playhouse.
Stage fright.
Oh, God.
What has been the toughest moment of your career?
Oh, there's been so many. In terms of just abject terror, I mean, I still get stage fright now, very, very badly. And the more the reputation of the Nimmos have gone up, the worse it gets. Because when we were unknown, it was like, well, it doesn't matter if we... But, whereas people come along there and they're like, right, it better be good. So you're in the wings going, oh, God, I really hope this is good. In terms of real abject terror, the first night here at the Royal I was levitating in the wings with fear. I couldn't breathe. It was overwhelming. And I played the Melbourne Festival in 2002, and it was 1,500 people, and I was doing stand-up. And I knew I wasn't a very good stand-up. I'd won a competition to be there. It's the only reason I was there. I'd won a competition to be there. They went, oh, you're really good. And I'd won this prize. And the prize was I had to play in this enormous hall. And I'd only been doing stand-up 8 months. And I remember walking on, and it was just, I couldn't see anything. And my hands, because I had jet lag, really bad jet lag, so I was all over the shop. And my hand wouldn't stop shaking. And I did my first 2 jokes, normally which were bankers. They were the best 2 jokes. And they got nothing. They got almost next to nothing. And I could feel myself start to melt with fear. My throat sort of just completely seized up, and that's what they call it, dying. And I could feel like the spotlight go to a pin, and I think that's probably the most scared I've been. I started to gabble. I think I just at one point went, I can do this because my brain just went, nah, nothing to do with us. And that was the hardest. And also I was so far from home, and I was completely there on my own. And I think that was the toughest. But every show, the first 2 or 3 nights before I know that the show works is horrible. Every first night of the Nimmos, every first night of Sortabiography, in particular, the first night of Sortabiography, because I didn't have Owen backstage with me. Normally I have someone there. So I was backstage from 6 o'clock and just thinking, how many more times can I go to the toilet? Just sure this is a record. And then I was so nervous, and I was shaking. I was talking to myself in the mirror, and then around 6:30 something happened, and I reached this state of absolute Zen grace where I couldn't feel anything. I went through fear into this other place, and when I walked on stage for the first night of Sortabiography, I didn't feel anything. I was numb.
You're numb on stage.
I was absolutely paralyzed with fear. And oddly, it worked, because as soon as I got the first couple of laughs on the stage, it all just went. But if you'd have told me at 5:30 I'd have been able to do it, I was just thinking, I got to the point where I was thinking, I'm going to call either my girlfriend or my agent and get them to say that I've collapsed, because I can't do this. I'm on stage alone talking about this incredibly personal show. Who cares? They're going to hate it because I'm not doing Shigo. It was all this stuff, and it was crazy. But it doesn't go away, and I think if it did go away, I'd be more worried. If you're not nervous when you're in the wings about to do something that you really care about, you've probably got something to worry about, and it just keeps you on edge. And the time that we got too relaxed, and this is at the end of this, the last time we played the Royal in October 2017, we were like, yeah, back at the Royal, yeah, know how to do this, yeah,
feeling confident,
sold out, is it? Of course it is. And it was probably the shoddiest two performances we put in. We just didn't. It was a real lesson that every single show you've got to be totally focusing on it. And we got a bit too relaxed, and it'll never happen again, because one place you don't want to wobble is in front of 1,300 people here, and we did.
Well, this is what I was going to ask about Norfolk audiences. I mean, what do you make of them? Do you find them tough at all, or?
Sometimes. I mean, the Nimmos have been going 22, 23 years now, and there are still nights at the Playhouse with a show that the night before tore the place apart and you had a great show. The next night, you're going, what the hell's going on? Because their arms are folded and it's quite quiet and they're not really laughing. And it's because they're very honest. It's the reason Norwich is the reason a lot of stand-ups preview shows here, because Baddiel and Skinner, David Baddiel in particular, used to preview his shows at the Arts Centre, because he said if you got a laugh in Norwich, it was absolutely earned, and if you died in Norwich, it was absolutely earned. So they weren't being generous, like, yeah, it's funny, no, that's crap, and it was every single joke. So they're very, very good at telling you if it works or not. But and I think in particular with the Nimmos, because the show is specifically written for them and about the world that they live in and about the news stories that they've encountered during the year, it feels, I think initially they've come in feeling already invested in the show and feeling a certain amount of warmth to us, in that they know that the show is literally just for them, it's a bespoke show. And they've been fantastic. I mean, we have people that will come to see the same show 5-6 times and who've been with us from 1996 when we started. So I feel very, very grateful. I never ever take for granted that we're going to sell a show out, and I never ever take for granted they're going to laugh, because when you do that, you fall straight on your face. So yeah, I love playing in Norwich. It's always it's always a homecoming, and it's always very honest.
So the next question, centre stage. What has been the moment in your career that you feel defines you as an artist?
Blimey, these are not throwaway questions. These are not define me as an artist. I think doing Sortabiography in January for the first time it was the first time I'd really been on stage. It was the first time I'd ever done a full-length show as myself, not wearing a wig, not playing a character. And the fear was that if I'm myself, literally, in terms of the script I'm doing is very naked and very honest, will they like me? And will they like me if I'm not wearing a blonde wig and false boobs? So the fact that they did, they were invested in the show and really loved the show, and they liked me by default, was a real moment, because it felt like, I can relax. So the reaction to the both nights was incredible, in terms of, we got a standing ovation, and people were emotionally invested, and people were in tears, and I got huge feedback from people that had been through similar stuff. So in terms of what that meant at that point, that was really, really important, and it felt like something that I couldn't have done before now. And I think before then, it was probably the first time the Nimmos really landed, and I was aware of the level of laughter that we could provoke. And I think it was probably in the mid-noughties at the Playhouse, I remember being on stage and just looking and seeing people rocking back and forth and thinking, oh, I think we know how to do this now. And it was the first time we played the Royal, and I was doing Shigo, and she'd written a Mills and Boon type sex story, and I thought, oh, this is gonna, and it landed like nothing I've ever landed. I was waiting minutes to do the next line, and I remember looking out and just again seeing people rocking and in tears, and this feeling I'd never had before, like, wow, well, remember this, because this is probably as good as it gets. There's no better feeling than this. You know, you did this, you wrote this, you're performing it, and this is the reaction. This is everything you wanted has kind of worked out. So I think between the two, I think the first time the Nimmos exploded and it was like, oh wow, we are actually funny, or people find us funny. And I said, then again in January, being myself, which was something I'd been putting off for ages. And now I've done it once, I want to do more. I want to go, this is me naked, you love me now. And it's a really nice feeling to go, oh, I don't need to put false breasts on for people to like me. And as a man, I think that's important, to get to that level of your life.
We like both facets of you, for sure.
Do you know, don't get me wrong, it's I love false boobs. They're not for everyone, you know, not every bloke will smile. But once they're on, you do get a sense of, oh, it's quite comfortable, isn't it? But it's nice to just throw them to one side and go, it's me. It's me. No falsies.
Not literally. Do you mean literally for?
Yeah, not
over the shoulder.
I dry them with a hairdryer, so they get very wet. The false breath. They actually do, because I'm actually wearing. People know this. I'm actually wearing a real bra. I'm wearing a bra. They're not just like plastic. I'm wearing a real bra that's padded, and because it's not, I get very sweaty. But I'm doing it. It needs a wash. Yeah. I do need a wash, but I had to dry over a radiator. It's disgusting if people knew about it.
So these are the practical behind-the-scenes things that people don't necessarily
hear
about.
They don't know
do they?
that I'm wearing a purple, I think it's a 36 double D bra, padded, but it fits really nicely. It's got a nice feeling of doing a bra at the back. I'm sure you can't see this, but there are ladies here present that putting a bra on is something that we men, it's a pleasure that we men don't experience, that, you know, they take it for granted. But I think every man should put a bra on at least once in his life, and maybe parade up and down in front of a mirror on his own.
That's the next slogan for the poster.
Absolutely, yeah, for men that like bras. Where is this interview gone? We were talking about really artistic. We're just going to have to cut this stuff.
I wanted to ask you as well about, obviously Norfolk forms quite a large part of your kind of material and who you are as an artist. You know, there's also obviously artists and, you know, performers, you know, there's Alan Partridge and these kind of acts. What do you think it is about Norfolk as a location that creates this kind of content?
Well, I think Partridge said that they were trying to think of a town where Alan would come from, and it had to be close enough to London that it was practical for him to live there, but far enough away and isolated that it was still the middle of nowhere. And they went through a few, I think they thought they should it be Guildford or these other, or Grimsby or something, and in the end Norwich, because it's just intrinsically comedic, because it's a place that you're only going to if you're going to, and because it does feel it's still in the 21st century, can feel like it's living in the previous one. And it has a kind of we do different hair, and a slight sense of isolation, and a sense of suspicion of outsiders, and a fear of change. Those things, anything that's kind of ossified and tight and unchanging, is perfect for comedy, because it's very easy to parody those beliefs and that, you know, those kind of thoughts. And the fact is, I've had those thoughts myself, which is why I'm able to write, you know, the kind of comedy I do. But it is. I don't think that a normal for Norfolk could maybe work, whether you could do a normal for Grimsby, or maybe you could do a normal for Cornwall, because it would have a sort of similar vibe, and, you know, fear of outsiders, lots of rich people coming in and taking the houses and stuff. But I think because there's only one major city in the middle of a bog, that it's everyone knows the same stories, so that everyone reads the same paper, which is the EDP. Everyone pretty much supports Norwich City. They know what the council does. They know what outsiders are like. They know the things they like. They know things they don't like. And because those parameters are there, it, for me, is just lovely to write about. And I think everyone that comes to the shows feel that this is the great thing. I think Jonathan Swift said, satire is a mirror in which every man sees a face except his own. And I think people that come and see the shows always say to me, "Oh, that's my cousin. That's my sister. My brother-in-law's like that." And they never ever say to me, "I'm like that." I'm the one that's kind of, you know, has these attitudes. It's always someone up the road, or it's always the town up the road. And I think Norfolk is just after 25 years, it's still this rich vein of stuff to write about, because the attitudes haven't changed. So all you do is pitch that attitude against whatever's going on. You know, you can go, what would a Norfolk weather forecast look like? What would a Norfolk CSI look like? And it's just a template that you can put on, and it just works. And I think Norfolk people, they get a lot of criticism for being a little bit uptight and a little bit unfriendly, but they really know how to laugh at themselves, and thank God they do, otherwise I wouldn't have a career.
So the next question, stagehand. What piece of advice would you give somebody wanting to pursue a career like yours?
In comedy? Or just
in comedy and writing?
Well, I would never ever give practical advice. I mean, people have asked me that before and said, what should I do? And I would never say, what you should do is what I do, which is join a theatre company, take a show to Edinburgh. And because if they did do that, they might end up losing £10,000 and never doing comedy again. I think if it's I think it has to be a calling, comedy, because the bumps in the road are real bumps. And I don't think it can be something that you do casually. If you want to get into comedy and you've got a passion for it, I would just say, just keep writing, because every time you fail, which will be a lot, you get better at it. And I started at Crude Apache Theatre Company in Norwich, here in Norwich, and that for me gave me an opportunity that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I had no money, I was on the dole, so I didn't know how to book venues or get costumes or lighting. And what Crude Apache allowed me to do was to write stuff, which at that point wasn't very good at all. It was me flailing around. I was only 23 when I did it, and I'd never written anything before, but they put it on, and by putting it on I could see the bits that worked and the bits that didn't work. So join Crude Apache if you're in Norwich would be a genuine advice for someone that's interested in writing and or performing and doesn't know how to get into it, because they were fantastic for me. And also just keep at it, because comedy in particular, it has to be a passion. And there are ways in at the moment for joke writing. There's shows on Radio 4 where they take gags off unsolicited people, and also perform. If you want to be a performer, get on stage and perform, because it's the only way you can get better at it is to be rubbish at it. And the Nimmos, we died. I mean, people see us now and it's like the shows are sold out and it seems to be working, but we have died hard. When we did Edinburgh, we played on average, I think we played to 2 people a day was our average for the first 11 shows. And doing an hour of comedy in front of 2 people who were enjoying it, and they're trying to make as much noise as possible, but you really realise playing in front of 2, 6, 11 people, that if you can make 11 people laugh, you can probably make 11,000 people laugh or 1,100 people laugh. I mean, just get on stage and do it. And if you want to be a writer, just write, because the only difference between people that write and people that don't write is that writers write and people that don't write, don't write. You don't need equipment, you need a pen and paper. If you've got ideas, put them down. And yeah, it's okay to fail. So you will bugger it up, but then you'll get better. So if you've got a passion for it, do it. But don't do it too well, because there's not many jobs and I need them.
Fantastic. Okay. And the final question. The next stage.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for Karl Minns?
Well, immediately the future holds 3 nights of doing Sortabiography at the Norwich Playhouse, which is July 18th to the 20th. Do come along. It's basically the story of my life in an hour and a bit. Lots of laughter, a few tears, and quite inspiring. I think we got a great reaction to it in January, and it's probably the thing I'm most proud of writing and performing. And as I said, it's the first time I've been on stage on my own, and it is a funny show, but it's also got some dark content about some of the travails and troubles I had growing up, but it ends on a very inspiring note, and everyone that's come so far has gone away feeling uplifted. So even though it touches on some dark bits here and there, it's a show that I think will hopefully inspire people and make them laugh. So that's the immediate future. I'm writing some scripts for TV at the moment, which I hope get made, and I'm back potentially at the Playhouse in January, but I don't know if I can talk about that yet. So
might be an exclusive there.
It might be an exclusive. I'm aware that there was a person I went to school with, and his son is tapping at the window. It's only in Norwich would this happen. I used to go to school with you, Karl. Do you remember me? Happening right now. It's his life. In January, She Go may be doing a review of the year with friends at Norwich Playhouse. So She Go, I've been talking to her agent, and we think we've got her in the second or third week in January doing a review of this year. She's looking back at the year, her personal take on it, which will be the first half of the show, and the second half will be some of her friends, which I think is people's, I don't know them all, but they're people that have appeared in Normal for Norfolk.
Okay.
So Billy Boy will be there. Housework, Norwich's answer to Craftwork, will be there, and there'll be some other friends as well. So I think that might be happening. So if you're a fan of Shegu and the Nimmo Twins, then maybe January might be something you need to look out for. But before then, Sortabiography, July 18th to the 20th, Norwich Playhouse. Please come. I need new trousers. I'm begging you.